Welcome back, and here we are on our third and final acrylic landscape. Hopefully you've got through the first two without too much problem, and you're all fired up now and ready to get into this rather nice scene of in Ireland. It's actually on the Iveragh Peninsula, commonly known as the Ring of Kerry. And it was a lovely day, and the light was just shining on this foreground here, and I just thought this would be a rather nice one to finish off. You'll notice that the size of the paper is slightly larger this time, because I want to really get into all the different textures here and there, and laying down these beautiful washes. And we're going to put some washes down, we're going to put some glazing down over there, we're going to put some lovely darks into here, and then we're going to come up right at the end with a few opaque bits that'll just lift all these lovely grasses and everything else. Okay, so without any more ado, let's put this over here and let's show you what we're going to paint it with. So here are the colours. I'll quickly go through them. Brilliant yellow, Indian yellow, orange, madder brown, turquoise, cobalt blue, and this lovely one here, a transparent violet. Okay, so there are our colours. Okay, and we're going to go in and we're going to start painting these lovely background hills. Now these hills have got a sort of a purpley, sort of reddy, sort of bluey sort of colour. So we're going to mix up some colour. Okay, let's move this around again, backwards and forwards. I just want to show you how this all works, and I'm going to use my flat, okay, my short flat brush here, and I'm going to mix up some lovely background colour. So let's get in here with some. We obviously need a nice wodge of orange. There we go. And I'm using some water. I'm putting water. See, imagine that. See, can you see the water's mixing into that rather nicely? Lift this up because I've got the light on today, and it seems to be. It's a little dark outside, and without the light on, it's. I'm afraid it's fluorescent lighting, and it isn't the best to be working under. Anyway, there's the orange. We get a little bit of orange in there. We get a little bit of madder brown down there. Keep the colours all sort of separately, because we're going to mix and merge them on the paper. Okay, as I keep banging on, whoops, we're going to have to go up a bit. Keep banging on about not over mixing. A little bit of Indian yellow in there as well. This is for the lower parts where you get that in there. Okay, so we got two halves. Keep always refer to the colour photo that you've got, so that, there we are. I can't have it too low because it's so wet. You can imagine it's going to just end up in my lap. Right, now we're going to get some cobalt blue in there because it's got a bit of a shadow right along the top there. And then we're going to actually come in with a nice bit of this lovely violet here as well. Let's bring this over there so you can see. Okay. And maybe just a touch of turquoise in there. Okay. So, not anymore. Move that across there, and we can start painting. Right. So let's get in. Let's do this. Whoops. Let's get this background. Getting too excited here. Let's get this background bit done in here. Okay, so we'll go straight in with a little bit of blue, a little bit of orange. Let's see. Oh, that's nice. There we go. So we're just pulling those colours out. It's quite dark along that top edge. Keep this edge here nice and sharp. Also, remember with acrylics, we can always come back in and overpaint, and we haven't got to worry about lifting any of the underwash, because when it's dry, it's waterproof. Isn't that fabulous? So we really haven't got to worry about lifting any of the colours that we originally put down. So I just bring that down through there, and then it goes quite light there. So I'm going to add a little bit of Indian yellow to that, a little bit down through there. And again, you can see I'm doing this in a staccato move. Now, while that's going off at the top there, I'm just going to add some water, and I'm going to bring some water across through there. There we go. And I'm just bringing water across through that area there, and it's just sitting down nicely. There we go. So that's the cloud that's sitting down over the top of these mountains. There we go. So there we have that lovely. Okay, so here you see it, now you don't. Okay, it'll drop more colour into there, because that actually is quite dark through there. Let's come down into here with a little more of the Indian yellow, a little orange in there as well. So it's just a bit lighter down through there. These colours will all mix and merge together nicely anyway, so don't worry about them being too. There we go. There we go, lovely. So that's a nice one. So we're lifting up. We've got quite strong down through there. If you want, we can lift out just with a dry brush. Just lift a bit of that out. There we are. Another dry brush. Just lift a bit of that out of there. We can always come back in neat. Okay, before it dries, because like I say, as soon as it's dry, it becomes waterproof. So we want to make sure that if we are going to lift anything out, we have to do it before it dries. There we go. So we just put that in there. So that's nice and dark in there. Anyway, let's pull that up there. I'm going to have to lift this up a bit, because it's up better. There we go. I'm afraid the light in here is not great for videoing, not at the moment. I was doing some the other day and it was nice. It was sun shining outside, so it was really quite nice. But I'm afraid today it seems to be a really horrible overcast day. Can't believe how from one day to the next it's right. Okay, so over into this one now, and we'll get this. So I've added a little bit more blue to this one. Here we go, and we keep that edge nice and sharp. There we go. And we're still going in. Let's get a little bit of brown into there as well. And we'll get a little bit of the old Indian yellow into there. So we're getting a tiny bit of counter change between this foreground mountain and the background one there, which I think is gives it a little bit of drama there. There we go. Let's keep the colours moving all the time. Keep the colours moving. Don't overmix them. Keep them moving. There we are. Now you can see I've got the board at quite an angle now, especially as the light's not the best. I think that's all right now. Yes, I think you can see that. You can see what's going on now. We were getting a sheen on the top of the colours, which really doesn't help when you're trying to see what colours I'm putting down. So anyway, look at all these gorgeous colours coming up here. Again, I'm not over mixing. I'm keeping it moving along. Don't worry about getting this edge here, because we're going to overpaint anyway. So there we are. We've got a nice. I'm just going to soften off that little lot there. Soften that off. There we go. and just take a few lines across there so it's going. And then we've got our, let's put that down in there. There we are. So we have our background hills, which are really rather nice and juicy. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come in and we're going to put some colour down into here. Now I'm just going to dry this top bit off first, because what I don't want it bleeding up into there. I want an edge, because obviously there is an edge there. So we'll just let this dry with the hairdryer, and then I'll come back to you. Right, now we're going to work into the midline stand of trees along here. There's greeny bits in here, and then there's some nice reddy bits in there, reddy orangey bits in there, little greeny bits up in there. So we're going to keep the colours moving around like we did before. This time I'm going to use my long flat brush, okay, just a little number 2, nice little one, and I'll be able to work some colours into here, which will be, it'll just make it look like a nice stand of trees there. So we'll get a little bit of the madder brown, the orange, and a little bit of the Indian yellow there, only a touch, and we'll go in with a little bit of cobalt blue, and obviously a touch of the violet as well. So let's go in and see what we make of this. So into there we are. A staccato movement, keep the colours moving about nicely. Okay, and we can get some nice dark bits down into there and into there. We've got a greeny bit up into there. We'll come back to that in a minute. We'll just add a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue. We'll have a nice bit of green as well. So let's get a bit of green into there. There we are. A little bit of green into there. It's looking good. Make it slightly darker. Use the cobalt blue. And then back into the actual standard tree. Now keep this edge here. Got to keep a nice light edge there. So keep that edge there. There we go. And moving it about nicely. There we go. Now this is a sort of it's not a dry wash. It's not a too wet. It's not really a wash, I suppose. It's more of a mix. So we're moving the colours around. We're not they're not sliding around all over the place. They're put down. So I would call this not a creamy wash. Slightly milky, I suppose. Okay, just keep the colours going. Now I'm leaving some little areas here. This is a stand of roadside grass is just very yellow. If you check your photo, your reference photo, you'll find that there's a really quite a nice stand of tree concentrating on this so much I can't remember what I'm trying to say. Yeah, there's a lovely stand of grasses along there. So we'll keep that, and we can pretty much just paint, go in with some nice, almost pure, brilliant yellow into there, and just bring that out. So that'll be well nice. And again, we haven't got to worry, because all these colours here will be absolutely waterproof. There we go. Please excuse me. Sometimes I keep forgetting I've got to keep talking to you, because I get tired. I think, oh, this is nice, that's going on. I think, but hang on, I'm not telling you what's going on. So I do apologise if sometimes I go off. Seems like I go off at a tangent, but it's just that the painting takes over, and I forget I know what I'm doing, but you don't. I do apologise if I get these quiet moments. Right, so we just, again, we're going in here. Let's get a bit more, let's get a purpley bit in here, because that's better. Bring the changes a bit, there we are. There we go. And also, if you like, I mean, a lot of this you could call it an underpainting, an undercoat, because we can always come back in and plonk some colour down onto. If we think, well, oh, have a look at it. Oh, that needs a bit more colour. That needs a bit, or that needs to be knocked back a bit. I mean, this is something we can do later on, and it's sort of. It's something that I always keep in mind, because I think, so, well, I don't want to get too worried about getting the exact colours here and now, because I can always come back and adjust, and it's rather nice to be able to do that with this lovely medium. So go in there, chuck colour down, and don't worry too much about it, because you can always come back in. As I say, we always come. Whoops, let's bring that over there a bit so you can see what's going on. So I can keep moving about. Okay, so we've done that now. Okay, and we'll let that go off, and we'll now come in and let's start just working into these little areas here. Okay, so if you look again at the reference photo, you'll see it's sort of got a yellowy tinge up the top here, and then it comes down to almost an orangey yellowy tinge down in here. So we'll mix up some colours, and again we'll go in with our long flat, and we'll go in this time, and I'm going to mix up some colour that's a little more watercolour wash. So we're adding some colour in there. There we are. Get a little bit of colour in there. That'll be quite nice. And then once we start moving down into the bottom area of the painting, we'll start getting into these colours here, and we might just put a little bit of cobalt blue into there. So hopefully, so there you see. So we've got a sort of a mix, and we can scoop a bit up here, scoop a bit up there, and we've still got. So you can see how wet it still all is there. Okay, let's clean the brush, and let's go in with some colour into here. And again, we can always come back and add or take away, depending on what we've got. So we've literally got quite a lot of different textures coming down here, and this is what I wanted to, for the last demo we're doing, I wanted to get a little bit bigger, so we can really move some of these colours around, which I think is nice. Don't worry about painting right to the edge, as long as we keep it to the main area here, which I think will be absolutely fine. Now we come down into here, and we're starting to get more into an orangey. Let's put a few orangey bits in there, so it doesn't. We're getting more to orangey, yellowy. There we go. Let's bring some of that down through there. Keep it away from that lovely boulder there, because we don't want that sullying all our lovely that lovely bluey slaty colour that we're going to get in there. So I put a bit more colour into there. Here we are. Again, back up into here. Let's get a little bit of yellow in there. Keep that nice and nice and bright in there, because that really has got quite a nice woo. Let's get that out of the way. I'm not following the photo either. There, bring that through there. Let's get a bit of greenery in there as well. There we go. A little bit of greenery just along there. There we are. I'll use the back end of the brush just to get a few grasses in. And there's a nice little bit of greenery in there. Yeah, this should look rather nice. Again, I'm just using the back end of the brush just to make it look as if there's a few bits of grass sticking up. And in with a bit of colour in there. And down through there we are. Right. And into there. Again, keeping out of our lovely slate grey boulders there. That goes into there, goes in there. Now while this is all going off nicely, let's just get a little bit of colour going down into this, into the verge. Here we go. Again, I really am just plonking colour down at the moment, just trying to get a feel for what's there. And as I say, I use this as an underwash, as an undercoat, and we're going to come back in. So I want to try and cover the paper with some colour, and it helps. And it's a lot easier to try and adjust your colours when you pretty much covered the paper with colour. When you're looking at a whole bank of white paper, it becomes very difficult to try and adjust your colours. You might look at this and think, oh, that's much too dark, and then or you think it is much too light. Whereas if you get some colour next to it, it really does help to adjust. So I would say don't start adjusting your colours until you've pretty much got this area covered with some sort of colour, and then it will definitely help the adjusting. I'm just going to squirt. I've got my little squirt bottle here. I'm just going to squirt my paints to make sure they stay nice and juicy. Another beauty of modern acrylics is the fact that if you squirt, if you use an atomiser, fine spray, it'll keep wet for quite a long time, which is absolutely brilliant. That's one of the things that really used to put me off painting acrylics, was the fact they used to dry so quickly. And you just couldn't, and of course, not only would it dry on the paper, it dry on the palette. So it means that, if you don't work very quickly, you keep having to replenish your colours because they're all drying on you. So, okay, I'm going to now, while this is sort of like semi-wet in here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to give this look at those lovely darks we've got in that photo. So we're going to go in. I'm going to add some gorgeous dark colours. There we are. Look at that. Ooh, get in there. So I've got madder brown. I've got cobalt blue. I've got a little bit of turquoise as well. Sorry, a little bit of violet as well. So that should really go nicely. I'll put that in, and I'm just going to let's get a few grasses here and there, which will just make it rather nice. There we go. So we stick a bit in there, a bit down in there. And again, this is an under painting, so we can come in. If you find it's dried, a little drier than you want. And another good thing about excuse me, painting acrylics is when they dry, they don't really use a lot of intensity. Thing is, with watercolour, I'm afraid one of the things against watercolour, if there was anything against it, was the fact that colours would dry at least 25% lighter than when you apply them. So it means that if you actually, when you put the colour down, if you got it right, when it dries, it'll probably be wrong. So, but not so much. There's very little colour shift with acrylics, which I think is absolutely a super thing to have under your belt, because then you haven't got to worry too much about, oh, I love that colour, but have I got to put it in a lot stronger? Because when it dries, is it really going to be a bit disappointing, because it's not what I wanted strength-wise. So anyway, so you put a little bit in there, a little bit up through there as well. Let's put a little bit down into here, tick a little bit. And of course, you know what's coming next. Yes, folks, it's a bit of hair flick. So I'm going to get my little number 6 round brush, watercolour brush, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to flick in some colour into this area here. And that's just going to give me a nice bit of texture. There we go. Again, try and keep it out of your lovely dome of, I presume it's granite, I don't know. Here we go. And we go up in here as well. Let's get some going up through there. There we go. And all this is doing is giving you a lovely bit of texture, so it doesn't look flat. We don't want this all looking flat. It's not flat. It's all grasses, old burnt grasses and whatever. And by flicking it out there, it just makes it look a bit natural. So we're going in, we're using this sort of thing. There we are. That's nice. You need to make sure that when you actually are flicking, you don't make, if it's too dry, it won't come off the end of the brush. If it's too light, if it's too wet, it'll dry too nondescript. So try and get that colour just right, and then just tickle in here and there. Use that wonderful mixing tool. There you go. And it makes some gorgeous marks. And I'm just stamping my finger in it just very gently, just very gingerly in there, you know, it'll just add a little bit of texture there. That's looking good. Now what I'll do is I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back to you, and then what we'll do is we'll start working into the grey areas, which is going to be the path. Sorry, the track, and also these lovely domes of rock here. So I'll come back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to mix up a bit of road work now. So we're going to go turquoise and keep it very, 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 very liquid. Okay, we don't want that. And I'm going to use my flat, and we're going to come in and put a little bit into the centre of that road there, and then we're going to come in down into here. There we go, a little bit of, again, follow your reference pick. And bring some of that colour across through there. There's quite a lot of light. It's obviously typical Ireland. There's obviously quite a lot of rain around, so there's obviously the light is shining on that's why we've got this lovely light area through here on the road surface. There we are. So we put that in there. Let's go in just some slightly darker areas in there. There we go. And I'll keep it. And you can see when I was mixing, it's a sort of like a semi mix. It's not too dry, not too wet. But I'm going to get now. Use my little number 6 brush, and I'm just going to add a bit of texture in here as well. There you go. Yep, you can't keep hair flick down. Not for long anyway. There we go. Just give that a nice feel of texture. Little bits of stone and pebble and whatever you get on the top of that. On top of the road surface. There we are. Don't overdo it. It says you're overdoing it. And just get a nice bit of dark in that middle bit. Obviously that's the bit that the cars don't go over. So there, so just a little bit more of the cobalt blue into that bit there. That's looking good. Okay. Back to the long-handled. Sorry, I keep saying long-handled. The long flat. We're going to go in and get this rather nice dome of rock sitting in here. Let's see what that's doing. A bit too blue. Let's add a little bit more. A touch of orange, just a touch of orange I think we need in there. That's better. There we go. There we go. It looks just the ticket. There we are. Yep. And you can see the domes going in this direction. So I paint in that direction. So all the colours are moving around in that direction. There. Bring that out into there. Yep. Let's add a little bit more. Whoops. There, a bit of colour into there, a bit of colour into there. Add a little bit down in this little bit here as well. Here we are. Into this one over here again. Keep it like some lovely light accents along the tops there, so just keep that fairly simple. There we are. And just going to mix up another little semi-mix in there, a little bit of cobalt blue, a little bit of cobalt turquoise, and just a touch of orange. There we are. Into there, and down over here as well. And these have obviously these are the same sort of little rocks of the same material. So give them a little bit of extra. And I'm just, while this is wet, I just want to go over and give that a little bit more strength. We'll come back in when it's dry, and then I'll add a little bit more to that as well. So we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. We're not a million miles away. I'm just going to add, I've not really put anything into this area here, so let's give that a bit of that bank through there. We are. And I'm looking at that and thinking that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to, just before we stop, I'm going to just go in and put an overall wash over this area here, because I want that to really stand out. So I'm going in with quite a wet orangey yellowy wash, and I want to just push that over this whole area here, because I really want that to be quite. It's obviously been a burnt that has been burnt some stage along its life, and so we don't want too much white coming out there. If you find that you would like to have had some lighter accents of grasses, then, and I'll show you what we'll do, we'll come back in and we'll produce some later on, right at the end. It's what I call the the calligraphy, the little bit of doing those little bits of jewellery that just bring the whole thing to life. So we can, right at the end, keep the fiddling bits right to the end. So you're almost treating yourself to a bit of, right, I've done all the grunt work, you know, all the hard stuff. I'm now going to go in and I'm going to enjoy putting in these little bits of jewellery, and it's such fun, and it's really it's quite therapeutic as well. Okay, folks, let's let this dry, and then we'll come back in and we'll start making building up some colour here and there, and then putting in some final details. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so now everything's nice and dry, and we're going to glaze. That is, we're going to put a nice transparent layer of paint over this whole lot here to bring that out. I want to get that a little bit darker, knock that back, not too much, but just want to knock it back a little bit. So we're going to have a nice purpley violety glaze over there, and I'm going to uprate a bit. I'm going to go for a long flat. It's number 6 this time, because I want to just go, I'm into a big swathe of colour. Okay, so let's mix up some nice juicy, almost a watercolour. There we go. And that should work really nicely, so we get be quite dark next to that area, and then when it comes down lower, it gets a little lighter, so we'll use that. So we've got these 3 areas. So we've got the dark area as the top, and then as we start moving our way down the mountain, we'll start pulling in some of these lighter colours here. Okay, so let's get cracking. In we go. Again, it's not going to be a huge amount of difference, but there'll be enough there, and I want to bring that across as well, nice and wet across there like that. And while this is wet, I'm going to go in and some water and just bring that again like we did before, bring it across through there. Here we go. So we get a nice bit of lowering cloud there. Very nice. Bring that down into there, and we're getting slightly lighter here, so I'm adding a little bit of the orange to it, so I'll bring that down into there. We'll make sure it's a little darker there, because then we get the counter change, and just leave that little area there, so a bit of light, so a bit of sort of light there. So we've got a nice bit of counter change here. We don't want to kill this bit here, because that's rather good. I like that. So we'll come up and we'll put some strength into this area here, and we make this a bluey type of bluey feel to it, I think. There we go. So we bring it, and we don't want that to be killed there, so we just bring that out there. Here we are. Doesn't need to be too strident, but as long as we get a feel that there is a light bit against the dark bit there, I think that should work quite nicely. There we are. Oh, I rather like that. So I'll just hold this up to so you can see. Look at all those lovely colours mixing and merging in there. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this lovely feel of all these colours mixing and merging without them getting, looking like mud. So while that's all going off, that was almost a watercolour wash. We're now going to come in with and just uprate a little bit on these mid trees here. So we're going to have a little orange, a little bluey, a little greeny bluey in there as well, and have a bit of fun just to add a bit more colour here and there. Not a lot. I'm just going to add a little bit here and there, just to. I do like to get my textures in, so if So here we are. So leave little bits, leave little areas here. That actually could do with being quite dark against the background. So let's go in a little bit like that. There we are. So we get a nice dark feel. So that pulls that forward. Oh, we can get another little darker bit in here. Again, I'm probably not following the photo per se, but I'm sort of making it my own, which is what I'm saying. Which is what I say to you. You know, try and, if you like an area, and also the other thing is, if sometimes you'll put a bit of paint down, you think, oh, that's a bit of a mistake, but I rather like it. Well, if you like it, leave it. It's remember, this is a painting. It's not an illustration. You're not trying to produce something that's exact. You're trying to produce a bit of you. Remember, as you were driving up through here and going through the mountains there. Well, actually, it was quite a wet day from what I can remember. And I know that when we went through this, you go around there and through that pass there, and there was a huge lake over the other side, which was quite astounding. You just don't know what you're going to go. You turn around each bend and there's always something new there. And this is what I try and do, is I like to paint for my own, if I can, I always like to paint for my own photos as much as possible, because I've been there and I'm painting a bit of me. And this is what I'm saying. If you can get into this feeling of, right, I'm getting quite happy with what I'm doing now, and I want to start painting my own stuff, then that's great. And then you can start using all your own reference materials, which is, well, really what we're all looking to do. So we just put a little bit of greenery in there. Okay, we've done that. Let's put a little bit of texture into this background bit here. Here we are. Didn't that looking a bit flat? Okay, and then while that's all going off, I'm coming back in with my little number 6 round. I'm just going to put in some. I'll put some little edges along the curb here. Nothing too strident. Just a few little edges, which will just give you it'll not a line, but it'll give you an edge. So this will be, there we are, put that into there. And this, again, you see, all you've got to do is look at the colour that you got on your palette and just think, oh, I like a bit of that, scrape it off and put it down, and away you go. I'll just put a little bit more into there as well while we're going. I move about, as you can see. I'll see a bit and I'll add a bit here and I'll add a bit there, and it's all the time I'm thinking, oh, that bit of colour would go nicely here, or that bit of colour would go nicely there. So add a bit as you're going along, add a bit more. There we are, let's add that up there. Okay, I'm going to go in and I want to uprate this lovely bowl of I keep saying granite. I don't know if it is granite or not, but anyway, so I want to get that. I want to get a nice feeling of, get that over there and get that through there. We go. Get that up in there. And similarly, let's get another wodge of colour coming down through there as well. There we are. Yep, that's nice. I haven't sent too many nices this time, which is quite heartening. Yeah. And we'll do the same through here. Just pulling a little bit of colour down. It'll just a little bit of darkness. Actually, a bit of darkness here and there, and goes a bit darker in there. Get a bit of darkness in there, but in there as well. And let's add a little bit of dark give these little pebbles a 3D. Right, so we really are in the throes of getting it done. Again, I want to just add a little bit more dark into these here while I've got this rather nice bluey mix, just to get that. And I'm just going to touch, like I did before, just touch it with my finger here and there. So it's not just a whole load of splatters everywhere. You know, you see some splatters and you lose some, and I think that adds to a nice load of texture. So that's working nicely. That's okay there. Right, let's give this a quick dry, and then we can come in and we can finish off putting in our final darks, and hopefully we've got ourselves a nice painting. See you in a bit. Okay, now this is where for me the fun bit really does start. And we're going to go in and we're going to start now getting these little bits of what I call the little bits of calligraphy. Okay, the little bits of fine detail here and there. So we just add these little bits here, and these are the bits I love doing. So it's, be careful, don't overdo these bits. It's so easy to do that. So I'm always saying to you, and I'm doing a really nice creamy, mixture here. So that's really sitting in there nicely, and we'll put a bit down through there and a little bit in there, a little bit there, and we just come down through here. I just have to move that so I can get it, and we need a little bit of just across there. Here we are, and a little bit out through there. See, just adding these tiny little bits, and then you think it starts making it into an actual painting. You know, that really gives it that lovely 3D feel. Let's add a little bit of colour into that there. Let's move down into this area here as well. This is going to look rather nice. So into there. So the mixture is cobalt blue, a little bit of violet, and a touch of orange. There we are. And that there is definitely an orangey bit. So let's put that into there. And now you can. This is the time. Before now, we've been, if you like, plonking the colour down a bit, which is fine. But now you've got this. You've got to paint this now. You've got to be a little bit more careful now, because we're putting in the. And don't get sloppy with your. Don't get sloppy with your detail. You know, this is the bit that the eye will be focusing on. So make sure you do this bit. Do it carefully. Like I say, you've done all the, what I call the grunt work. You've done the hard graft. Now treat yourself to a little bit of calligraphy, a little bit of detail, which really is so much fun to do. A little edge along there. And again, this is really quite a creamy mix I'm doing here. And a little bit more down through there. We are. That was good. Just a few little cracks and crannies looking. I want that to go into here as well. Here we are. Right, okay. And the same underneath these little outcrops, little pebbles. Oh, little rocks there, which, there we are. Oh, right, okay. Can't resist going in with a bit more here and there. Right, I'm just going to let that dry, and then I'll come back for the final time, and then we're just about finished. Okay, we're starting to finish off now. I want to put a little swathe of these grass in here. So literally, I'm just going in with all pure, just the pure, brilliant yellow. Put that in there. So there we are. That we can put some, and I'm going to add some yellow into these bits here as well, just to uprate some of that colour, just here and there. And we get a little more, little greenery bit in here, a little greenery bit in there, and that has got a touch of, whoops, and a touch of dark in there. Now I just want to add some really nice, before I finish, some really nice strong darks into this foreground. So I just mix up a really nice juicy mix, so we can really give it some welly. And you can squeeze the hairs of the brush, so it just gives it a lovely broken feel to it. Anyhow, just bring some colour down through there as well. Let's get some. Yep. Okay. This really is creamy. We're into a really nice cream now. Here we are. And we'll get slightly waterier, because that gets quite dark down through there. Get a bit of that, oh yes, get a bit of that purple in there as well. And it comes down into here and into there. Oh my goodness, you see that? It was almost pure orange there. Oops, I've still got a little bit on my brush. That's right, I quite like the fact there's a bit of, there we are, a little bit of orange here and there. Use that. Because if you look there, it really does jump out at you quite nicely. So we put that into there. Maybe put a few little touches down into there. And get a little bit of colour down into this bit here. Knock that back. There we are. I think this is looking rather nice. There we go. Okay, so to finish off, we're going in, and I'm going to use a little bit of white acrylic, and I'm going to mix a touch of yellow with it, and then we're going to put in these final little bits of what I call final little bits of calligraphy, which really, just to me, it's just the icing on the cake. So we're going to, oops, it's gone on the floor, and this time we're going to use my little rigger brush. Okay, so the number 4 rigger, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to that, and then we've got a. And you watch this. We've got to keep this. I don't want this to be white. It's got this. But here we are. So we'll put this into here. We start putting in some lovely No, it's a little bit too light, that. Let's get a bit more yellow to it. There we go, that's more like it. There we go. There, can you see those lovely little sparks of light going up through there? Now, if you make this too wet, it goes in very, very dark. We want this light, so. But if you make it too dry, it won't come off the brush. So you've got to try and get it so it's just the right amount of consistency, and then it'll come off, and you'll end up with some lovely. There we go. There we are. Look at that. There we are. And little twinkly bits here and there, all good fun. Look at that! Doesn't that just brings it to life, don't you think? There we are, and some lovely bits down here. Let's bring some of those up through there. A lot more water, I think, is needed. We can bring a bit into there, and these here definitely need a. There we go. And these definitely need a bit of there. Can you see that? It just starts to really make this into an actual landscape with all these tiny little bits that just add those final details, which I think just it really does bring the whole thing to life. I don't want to do a lot more to this, I don't think. It's very easy, very, very easy to think, oh, I'm going to put a few more of those in, a few more. But what I will do is I'll just, as obviously through here, what I'll try to do is I'll put in a little just a little edge of a bush, which I think will look rather good sat there. There we go. And maybe one up through there as well. This gives the eye something to focus on. And there, maybe just the last but not least, I just want to give that road a tiny bit of a slight glow. I want to get, so I'm just going to go in here and there and just put a tiny little bit of very, very dilute cobalt turquoise, because I just want to, I don't want that to be totally white. Just want to bring that through there. Here we are. I think, folks, that's about it. So I think we've worked ourselves through some really nice demonstrations, and hopefully if you've been following me and you're doing that, they've been working for you as well, and that I've actually helped give you a bit of encouragement to get and use these wonderful acrylics, which I think are absolutely super. But what I'll do is I'll just bring this up close so you can start seeing what I mean about keeping all the colours nice and juicy. Don't overmix. Keep the colours moving around. Look at that. See, all the time the colours are just moving about beautifully on the paper, and hopefully this will inspire you to get your paints out and have a go. So there you are, 3 landscapes under your belt. Okay, well, I hope we'll see you again at some stage. You never know. Until then, bye-bye for now.